Here's how you can hack your annuity sales in 2024 and dramatically increase your production by following these 5 simple steps. I'm Jim Fisher, a licensed producer myself, and after coaching over 1,000 agents, I have realized what big producers do that amateurs don't, and it comes down to these 5 steps. And if you're not respecting them, then it's costing you dearly. Now, steps 4 and 5, no one's talking about, not even your IMO, FMO, or agency. So stay tuned to the end so that you understand all 5 steps so that you can start closing more annuity business in 2024 and write significantly more premium. Now, if at any point you get value out of this video, go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to my channel for more training like this one. Let's dive in. The 5 steps to closing more annuities can be broken down into 2 distinct phases. Phase number 1 is the sales process, and phase number 2 is the closing process. Now, when we look at the sales process, we actually break down the 3 steps in the sales process into the 3 Ps. And when you follow them properly, they become the 3 Ps to profitability for producers, no matter what your lead source is. What is P number 1? Step number 1, it's problem. You need to uncover a problem. You see, a lot of people have an amateur approach to sales, and they just try to present products to people. They just push their products towards people, right? They sometimes just interrogate, fact find, and then illustrate and just try to inform them into buying, just walking them through the illustration and convince them that they need this. And what we prefer is to really live out something we call the sales professional's creed. And what does that say? The sales professional's creed is this, that people don't buy things that make sense. People buy solutions to real problems that they're fully aware of and have an intense desire to solve. And so it is your job as the sales professional to help uncover real problems that your prospect has a desire to solve, that the solution to solving those problems can be your product. In our case, it's a fixed index annuity. And so if you don't have a diagnostic process and a script that you can rely on that's proven to uncover real problems, you are closing far less business than you should be. So step number 1, uncover a real problem and be a professional. Don't push products to people. Create a poll by uncovering real problems that your prospect has an intense desire to solve, so that when you present the solution, it feels like this perfect puzzle piece of relief, something that they would want to urgently move towards. So from there, let's get into step number 2. So the second step is plan. What are we going to do in this step? We are going to plan the problem, or more specifically, we're going to further sell the problem. You see, a lot of people jump right to product at this point. You're losing business because of it. We want to amplify the desire for that prospect to solve the problem. And the best way to develop that desire, the most effective way to sell the problem, is to use tools that create objectivity. And more simply put, present undeniable facts, so that you guys are both looking at the same information and they realize that they need to do something about this. This means less convincing your prospect and more having them see it for themselves, and therefore selling themselves and asking you where and when they need help. Now, we create this scenario with the concept we call mathematical mirrors. You see, mirrors, they're objective, right? If you stand in front of a mirror, well, what you're seeing is reality, whether you like it or not. And so why mathematical mirrors? How do we create that reflection of reality with math? You see, math is also objective. If you understand math, which most people you're working with do, right? If they understand the basics of math and you reflect their reality of where they're heading in their retirement with that math, then you don't have any convincing to do, So math, like 8 plus 1 is... 9. You know that answer because you know math. And math is a language. Once you understand the language, it says the same thing to everyone. What about what's 10% of 80? Yeah, it's 8, right? You see, I didn't have to convince you that it was 9 in the first formula or 8 in the second answer. It's because you understand math. And if you can use math and kind of create a mathematical mirror where you can take the client's information that you uncovered in the problem step, and then you can reflect the reality of where they're heading with math, then you can have the prospect asking you for help. Hey, can you help me do something about this? You see, they can clearly see the problem and they'll ask for your help when you do this right. In our sales process that we teach to agents inside of our annuity attraction brands system, as well as our agentship coaching program, we use these mathematical mirrors. And so we have a proven sales tool that's proprietary that we developed that is built inside of a cloud-based spreadsheet. Why spreadsheets? Because just like the objectivity of a calculator, most people know that spreadsheets do multiple math calculations at once. And so we use that tool to do math in front of our clients. And through this process, we run through a diagnostic where we gather the information and we reflect the diagnosis back to them, much like a doctor would do. We diagnose the problem, we get really clear on why they aren't okay with that problem, and then open up to an opportunity of what should we do about this problem. We diagnose the problem and pain point in their retirement plan that's preventing them from achieving the retirement destination that they were after. Is it more income or more certainty or security? And then they usually ask us, like a doctor, for the prescription, right? We don't have to convince them to do something. We just have to have a diagnostic conversation with a mathematical mirror held right in front of them. And when they're ready to move to the next step, it's because they fully understand their problem with their current plan and they want to do something about it. The third step is simply present. You see, when you complete the first two P's in our 3 steps of the sales phase of this process, which this presentation step involves you getting them to say yes to your solution, it becomes much easier because of the first 2 steps. And we are going to present our solution as a puzzle piece to their problem. You see, we followed the sales professional's creed, and we effectively, through the first 2 steps, got them to be fully aware of the puzzle piece that they're holding. So it's right in front of their face. So when we show our solution, those 2 puzzle pieces fit perfectly and they can see it for themselves. And what happens by way of getting to this step in sequence, the 3 Ps, is that you often create what we call the objectionless close because they see it for themselves, right? Because you methodically and logically got them to come to a conclusion for themselves. There's no convincing. And when this is done right, they'll ask you at the end of the presentation, what do I do about this? What's the next step? Literally, nearly asking you to complete an application. Now let's move on to the closing phase of our process. This is where the last 2 steps, 4 and 5, exist. And really, it's where many producers fall short. And to be honest, it isn't their fault because you would hope that your IMO, your FMO, your agency would be adding the leverage that you need to your business to actually issue business and get paid. After all, that's what they are paid to do, or that's what they should be doing. They should be solving for or supporting you on these critical steps 4 and 5. But most of them aren't. And what you wind up with is maybe a bunch of interested people, a bunch of yeses, but little closed business to show for it. Now let's talk about step 4, which is the application process. Here we're going from applications submitted to suitability approved. The problem that some agents run into is they abdicate responsibility to the prospect instead of leading them through the application process. And they don't realize that there's still plenty of objections and resistance to overcome and pull people through in this stage of the process. And so you should not be sending links to people, or you should be virtually completing the application with the client and getting the signature with them on your Zoom. So that's one problem that we see happen all the time in this step of the 5-step process. The other one is application errors. You see, you don't have an application review process. You don't have training on how to satisfy the requirements effectively for each carrier and product. And so what you do is you assume and you kind of just wing completing the application. You maybe go so far as to get a signature from your client, and then what happens is that it gets kicked back and you have to go to your client, lose credibility because you have to correct things that you should have had right in the first place. And what's really painful about this for a lot of people is there's certain errors that you make that you really can't recover from, that the carrier will ultimately decline permanently, and you lose the opportunity to write business with that carrier. And you may even lose the opportunity to write business with that client because they simply don't trust you because you said you would do this and take them through this process, and it just isn't working. They're starting to have doubts. And so the solution is you need deeper product training. beyond what the carriers offer. You need application training on a product basis. You need suitability training, especially when it comes to replacements, but generally, you need application reviews before clients are signing until you have consistently issued a lot of business. You should be getting them reviewed before the client signs. And you should have a sequential process that you can prepare an application, get it to 80%, have it reviewed, and when you go get signed, you know with like a 99% confidence that this is filled out completely, because that is what's going to drive your suitability. And it's really the first stage in the closing process. You have to get the application approved. You got the yes, and if you do this step right, you'll get it approved, and you'll be ready for step 5 in the process. And that is the funds transfer process. It goes from funds requested, often in the application, to funds received, to issue paid, to commission paid, right? And a lot of people have never been trained on any of the important factors in this step. It's the final one that actually makes sure you get paid, because applications submitted or even approved are not paid business. And if you were lucky enough to complete step 4, but you don't know how to manage step 5, you'll never actually close the business and, complete the production and earn the income that you want. The problem that you face is you have a bunch of pending applications and you expect the insurance carriers to maybe go get the funds. Now, they have some incentives to do that, right? But they're not, to be honest, really, really good at it. And maybe your IMO has somebody who's supposed to be doing this, and even some of the good ones have somebody doing it. But if you have the proper training and you have the proper resources, that you know how different fund custodians have or seeding companies, how they handle their conservation efforts, when do you need to do a client-initiated transfer versus when would it be a carrier-initiated transfer? And in both of those cases, what involvement should you still have? You see, if you're trained on all these things and properly supported from your back office, I'm talking about your IMO, your FMO, your agency, your upline, the people that are paid to help you solve these problems, if you were actually supported in this way, then you would have very consistent funding cycles. And it is the final stage that literally most of the people that we work don't get trained on, let alone the prior stage, even if they have the 3 Ps to profit in some fashion in their business. And it causes you to not actually issue the business. And if the business is being issued, you're not being paid. And so those are the 5 steps of closing more annuity business. And if you want our help in understanding how you can dramatically increase your annuity production, then you should watch this next video right here, where we talk about the 11 critical stages of end-to-end integration so you can add $4 million or more a year to your annuity production. And if you also want to go deeper, check out some of the other videos below this one to learn more how you can write more annuity business. If not, join us in the comments, tell us what you learned, click the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.